There is a podcast that lies between the imagination of two simple-minded earthlings. Travel with these two longtime friends, Jimbo and 80s E, as they attempt to explore the fifth dimension. Follow along with them as they take the key and unlock the door to the vast space between shadow and substance. This podcast is one of trivia, of insight, and of sounds and ideas from one of the greatest television shows ever produced. You are embarking on a timeless journey. There is your signpost up ahead. You are entering the tragedy of cinema's Twilight Zone.
What you're about to watch in this room is a strange mortal combat between a man and himself. For in just a moment, Mr. Jackie Rhodes, whose life has been given over to fighting adversaries, will find his most formidable opponent in a cheap hotel room that is in reality the outskirts of the Twilight Zone.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Tragedy of Cinema, the Twilight Zone series. I'm your host, Jimbo, and today, joined from the fifth dimension is...
80Z, here back again in the fifth dimension for episode number 3 of the Twilight Zone series.
Of season 2 of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, overall thoughts of this episode number 3 of season 2? Just as an intro?
I better just... terrible.
Terrible.
There you go. I'll just lay it out there.
All right, and that's a wrap.
Unimpressive. Forgettable.
I will.
Not memorable, but forgettable.
Yeah, I'll make a distinction up front now. I don't like the singularly acted episodes. We've kind of established that we both kind of are on the same page with that. We don't really like that because it tends to drag in the middle of the episode, and it's hard for one person, unless it's like Tom Hanks and, what was that movie where he played?
Well, I'll disagree because I thought Burgess Meredith did a really good job in season 1. You know what I mean? With
Timing Up at Last?
Right.
Okay, well, I mean, there was some interaction there with other characters. There's literally 2 people in this episode, and the King 9 will not return, I guess is what I'm comparing it to. That one was difficult for me. This one was better. I don't know if it was because of the mirror situation and the fact that he was dialoguing with himself, and that made it better, as opposed to having, an internal monologue going on, how the King 9 will not return was. So I thought this one was a little better just off top, but I guess we should just go ahead and launch in. So I'll go ahead and launch in. This is entitled Nervous Man in a $4 Room. Again, as we've already stated, this is the Twilight Zone Season 2 episode number 3. It was directed by Douglas Hayes, and it was written by Rod Serling, and featured music. The original score was by Jerry Goldsmith. This particular episode's original air date was on October the 14th, 1960. The total production costs, way down for this episode, which was as a result of network pressure, I believe. There was a lot of things that I read in this particular, in one of the books that I have, that the producers were really happy that this came in like between $7,000 and $9,000 under budget. So they were really glad that they were, cutting down on the budgets for this particular episode. But $38,469 was the number for the budget. And when we adjust that for inflation, it's a 900% increase. It looks more about $384,912 in today's dollars. So close to $400,000 to produce this episode. Again, this is amazing what they can do on the budget back then, and some of these great episodes and what they can do for the amount of money that they did. I mean, they're just timeless classics. But Jimbo, go ahead with the cast if you want.
So this cast is, I'm telling you, it's pretty long. There's just 2 people on here. So you have Joe Mantell. He plays Jackie/John Rhodes. You may best remember him from the movie Chinatown, where he played Walsh, where I think he was Jack Nicholson's partner. He was also in Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, where he played a traveling salesman at the diner, the bar or whatever. You also had William D. Gordon as George. He's been in a ton of TV shows such as Bonanza, Hunter, Chips, The Fugitive. And let me just tell you one thing. If I had to hear Joe Mantell, John Rhodes say George one more time,
that's in the trivia. I was
about ready to just throw my controller through the TV because he says it the entire time. Hey, George.
Yeah.
It reminded me of, when
the cartoon
Bugs Bunny and Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, when Daffy Duck comes in, I will hug him and kick him and I call him George. I was like, just stop.
I have it written down here somewhere in the trivia here. How many times? I think. Oh, here it is.
Yeah,
he says 56 times, and 20 of them are within the first 2 minutes of the episode. I was like, all right, what's going on here? Yeah, very, very off the top in the beginning. It's like, oh man. Let me move along to I didn't do tech specs on this one. I might try changing something up. This might be a little more interesting. Maybe not. Just the details about this episode. The country of origin was the United States. We stated already that it was released on October the 14th, 1960. The filming locations, though. This was filmed at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Studios on 10202 West Washington Boulevard in Culver City, California, USA. The production company was Cuyahoga Productions and CBS Television Network. So just a little more background information on where it was filmed and produced. The plot of this episode goes like this. Jackie Rhodes is a 34-year-old small-time hood who lives in a cheap $4 a night hotel room. How about that? Can you imagine staying in a hotel room for $4 a night?
No.
That'd be, it's not great accommodations either. But he's waiting to hear about his next job as a muscle. That's in quotations. But when George shows up telling him his next job's the murder of a bar owner who doesn't want to pay off his gangster bosses, Jackie begins to have a conversation with his alter ego, who appears to him in the mirror. The alter ego takes him to task for choices that he's made in his life, choices that have led him to where he's been, crime, prison, and broken relationships. He also offers Jackie an alternative. So that's kind of the overarching plot of the episode. Go ahead and launch right in to this episode number 3. Anything other than the number of times that George is used in the opening few scenes? Anything jump off to you, Jimbo?
I will say one thing. I will say this about a positive about this. There are several times in this episode where they use the overhead camera.
Yes.
Looking down on them. And I think that was very well done because it just shows him, pacing back and forth or laying on the bed, and by them doing that, it made him feel like he's trapped, I guess. You can actually, it shows like he's trapped. Now, it may be trapped in his own mind.
Yeah.
But I think that was a way to visually show that.
Yeah, I thought that was a cool little aspect as well. I think they shot Rod's narration from the top too, didn't they? I'm trying to find it here in the episode early on, but yeah, the camera sort of pans in from the top of his hotel room. That was a cool effect. Yeah, definitely like that. So really, I mean, there's not really a whole lot to say about early on in the episode. I don't have a lot here other than he's on the phone and then he has this meeting with George early on in the episode, and then he has 2 interactions with George, once at the beginning and once at the end. And the rest of the entire episode is really filled with him talking into the mirror with his quote-unquote alter ego and the struggles. I thought, Joe Mantell did a pretty good job. He's in room number 14. I guess you can note that. That's on the phone. We can note that he's in room number 14. But I don't know. Do you have anything as far as trivia? It's not in the opening shot. It's maybe 2.5 minutes, Jimbo, what you were talking about earlier, that overhead shot. And then Rod, yes, he does. He steps into the camera.
Yeah, he walks in. I
think. Right. So that's a cool feature and that they added and gives his opening narration. I
have an observation, but I'll wait till the end to see if you say it or if you picked up on it. But I don't know if you knew this, because even though King 9 Will Not Return was the first one that aired, it wasn't the first one that was produced.
Oh, okay.
It was actually this one.
Okay.
Although King 9 Will Not Return, this is a quote from, or reading from the Twilight Zone companion book by Mark Scott Zickery. I highly recommend it. It's got every episode in it, but it states, although King 9 Will Not Return was the first episode aired this season, it was not the first produced. That distinction belonged to another virtual one-man show scripted by Serling. One man, but two characters. Once again, Serling was dealing with a type with whom he was seemingly very familiar. The anonymous, insecure, unimportant little man struggling desperately against enormous odds. Here the conflict is a basic one. The internal combat between an individual's weakness and fears on the one hand, and his will to rise to the occasion and take control on the other. Taking place entirely in a tiny hotel room, Nervous Man in a $4 room centers around the dialogue between the main character and his alter ego, who appears in a variety of mirrors. The standard operating procedure here would have been for the actor to play to his mirror image using a split screen. However, director Douglas Hayes felt this would limit the movements of both camera and actor, and that it would eliminate the performer's sense of playing to someone. Instead, Hayes decided to use rear projection. This was done by filming Mantell as the mirror self first. All of the mirrors in the hotel room set were actually rear projection screens on which the previously shot footage was projected, so what Mantell as the real Jackie Rhodes sees and reacts to is exactly what we see in the finished product. So he was actually saw himself in the mirrors.
That's really...
So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's a really cool insight. So they recorded everything, and then they rear projected it through the mirror, and then they took the camera and got behind him, and he's just reacting to himself. In the camera. Right. Yeah, that is cool detail. Just by way of notation on that, though, everything, I guess it's in the trivia, you may have this too, everything is reversed, like his shirt buttons, and you know that's kind of cool, like that we have technology now. Like I was thinking about this a while ago, like on your iPhone, when it knows, it has technology to, like, say your camera's like off center and you're taking a selfie or whatever, you're taking a picture, it adjusts and centers the picture for you, and that's just cool that you have that technology. And I mean, these were like, the technology back in 1960. Only select few people in the world had that kind of technology to do that, and now we just, we carry it around in our pocket. That's kind of cool that, that we have that kind of technology. But that was one thing that was noted, that I think it was in one of my trivia things, like his buttons on his shirt were reversed, and there were some other things because it was mirroring what was being projected through that screen. But yeah, that's really cool piece of trivia there. Anything else early on? I'm to the part in the episode where George is sort of muscling in on him and trying to. He calls him. What does he call him? Like a crumb. He's. Jackie's describing like, hey man, like I just got out of prison, I guess, or out of jail, and I did a 3-year stint. Like, you can't have me. I'm a small time guy. I'm petty thief, so to speak, and like you want me to go and murder somebody? This is like a major step. But you can.
Yeah, he said he's been close to being caught several times already. And he says, I don't want to push my luck by doing something big. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got no guts, George. I got no guts. And, he's a nervous man in a $4 room. Yeah, he's really nervous, and he's apprehensive about doing this. And that's the struggle, because the person in the mirror, right, is self-confident. He's strong. He's decisive. He wants to escape this life, but... And I'll talk about this more at the end in my observations segment, but Jackie is he's a scaredy cat. Like, he just kind of goes along with whatever George and the pressure that comes down on him. He's just going to go along with whatever he's told to do, and he doesn't ever stand up for himself. But inside, his alter ego is, compelling him, like, look, man, you can't keep doing this for the rest of your life. It's obviously gotten you nowhere. So that's the coolest struggle. Do you think that Jackie / Joe, do you think he was schizophrenic? I don't know. That's a good maybe observation. I think if this episode though plays to the the alter ego that all of us have. All of us struggle with, like a war inside.
The good and the bad.
Sometimes. I mean, it's sort of depicted in movies and television shows as the devil and an angel on each shoulder, but really it's an internal war.
I'm glad you said that, because here's my observation that I don't know if you picked up on. If you notice, Jackie and John, when he's in the mirror, John in the mirror always has like a white aura around him where the light's hitting him.
Okay.
Jackie's always in a darker thing.
Okay, I didn't pick up on that.
I think what I was trying to pick up with the lighting there is that Jackie, look, he's a criminal. He's doing all these little jobs. The guy in the mirror is like, look, what about this girl? We had a chance at love with her. You know what I mean? You could have done something with your life. So I think there's that struggle of good and evil. And I want to say the guy in the mirror was the good side of Jackie, or John, if you will. And then the darker, nervous man was the thing. And then at the end of the episode where he basically decides to switch, you know what I mean? I think that's telling. But if you watch that episode, look in the mirror, especially in the main mirror, you can see how he's kind of lit up with like a white glow, if you will. Mm-hmm. Do you see it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see it. Maybe not in the opening scenes when he first starts, but yeah, I think in later scenes you kind of get that distinction. And then probably halfway through, like 9.5 minutes, we get that overhead shot again of Jackie laying on the bed and he's biting his nails and he's back and forth. Now, further along in the episode, I thought was really cool where he tries to run away from the main mirror and he goes into the bathroom and washes his face.
The closet.
Or in the closet, and then he pops up in those smaller mirrors. I thought that was really well done. That was really cool. That he can't.
Yeah, especially when he tries to run it. Yeah. He tries to run out the front door and there's that mirror in the hallway. He's like, where are you going?
He can't get away from himself. That's the struggle there. That he can't get away from himself and he's constantly in battle with himself. I don't know is there any trivia about this particular section. Again, this episode, after George leaves, he just goes on and on with himself. Yeah, I definitely see the shadow and the light here in this.
Do you see it now?
Yeah, when he's got his back to the mirror and John in the mirror, he sort of has a whitish glow around him. Yeah, and Jackie is sort of kind of
dark. Yeah,
sort of encased in a little bit of darkness, or it's a little darker shot. Yeah, that was cool. I didn't notice that before. And I've watched it like I told you, I've watched every one of these episodes probably at least 3 times and try to pick up on things. So
there is the famous I guess sentence that when he's looking in the mirror, he's like, "You talking to me? You talking to me?" That's famous from Taxi Driver back with, or even Dirty Harry says it. You know what I mean? So I thought that was pretty interesting too.
Yeah. I have here that although Serling mentions that Jackie is 34 years old, Joe Mantell in real life was about 44 years old when he made this particular episode. Excuse me. There's not a whole lot here. This is the scene where he opens the closet door and then he sees his reflection in the closet door, and then he rushes to the bathroom and splashes water on his face, and then he sees himself in the mirror. Jackie, it's got an ominous feel to it. So just along the lines of the budget, I did have a little bit here. According to the book, The Twilight Zone, Unlocking the Door to a Television Classic by Martin Grahams Jr., Serling wrote the teleplay in response to a request from CBS, to write scripts using as few actors as possible for budgetary purposes. This episode was produced $5,000 under budget. Can you imagine, hey, can you not spend so much money? Can you only put 1 or 2 people in an episode? And you, by the way, you have to write it and do wear all your other hats, but you have to write a complete story from scratch. That's crazy.
Let me ask you this question while we're on that.
Yeah.
Have you ever found out if Rod Serling got paid for his cameo appearances or his narrations at the beginning of these? Did he give himself a salary, or was it just all for free since he's getting paid another way? Do you know?
I have no way to know that. That's a good question. Might want to do a little deep dive research on that. It's certainly, I don't know. I don't know how you would set that up. He certainly should have been paid something for...
Or was he just... Or since he was the creator, he probably got a bigger paycheck, and that was just, I'm going to go on screen anyway? I don't know, because season 2 is when he actually first started doing the narrations. You know, I mean, he was in the last episode of season 1.
Yeah.
You know, at the end or whatever. But I just didn't know if you had ever came across the number, if he got paid for his narrations. I don't know if I've ever seen it.
Yeah, the on-screen narration started in season 2. Just by way of a little historical fact, The Twilight Zone was not telecast on the evening of October 21st, 1960. All 3 major networks carried the debate between Vice President Nixon and Senator Kennedy in their race for the presidency. The men compared views on the vital issues of the day and replied to questions on foreign affairs. So John F. Kennedy would go on to win the election in 1960. So, the networks had to hold off their dropping of the next episode due to the presidential debate. This was interesting, too. I want to share this. I think this is it. The plot device of a man alone in a room facing his alter ego who was forced to choose that would become his destiny while groping with reality was reused in The Last Night of a Jockey when the Twilight Zone revived in the mid-'80s. Bruce Willis starred in a similar theme story titled Shatterday. This was a tale about a man, Peter J. Novins, who attempted to prevent his life from being taken over by his alter ego, and by the time he checks into a hotel room, he discovers he has failed in every attempt. In a number of episodes of Married with Children, the character of Bud Bundy faces his alter ego in the mirror and becomes a suave sexual personality that momentarily takes over. I'd have to go back and watch that episode. That sounds funny. Any more trivia, Jimbo, from your side of the aisle?
Not really. Just that, the Jerry Goldsmith, who did the musical score, also wrote the score for Chinatown from 1974 that we've already talked about. So that's about all I got for this episode.
And Joe Mantell played in Chinatown, and his famous line at the very end to his partner, "Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown."
It's Chinatown.
Yeah,
right.
And it ends the movie.
I don't know if we've talked about the what do you call it? The ending of this episode, where I thought it was really cool when Jackie goes and he's like, "Look, I'm leaving," and he flips that mirror and it just spins.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? And he turns around and looks, and he's back in the mirror. You know what I mean? He's like, "You can't get rid of me that easy, Jackie," or whatever he says. And basically, what ends up happening is the man in the mirror, not Michael Jackson, but the man in the mirror actually becomes to the real life, and Jackie is put into the mirror, basically signaling that, look, this ego is now taking over, this personality is now in charge, and we're getting rid of the nervous guy. So when George comes back, he's like, "Look, Jackie," he's like, "I'm about ready to skin you from limb to limb, you crumb. Nobody's dead at the bar or whatever." You know what I mean? He's like, he gets up, he says, "Look," he says, "it's not done and I'm not going to do it." He's like, "I'm leaving." And he punches the guy, I think, in the stomach, and then he hits him in the head. He's like, "You take your gun and you get out of here." Punches him. He's like, "I quit. I'm not doing this. He said, don't come around here anymore." And then he takes the bullets out of the gun and he throws the gun down the hallway too.
Yeah.
Puts the bullets in the trash can. And he calls the hotel clerk and says, "Look, this is John Rhodes in room 14 or whatever." He says, "And I'm checking out. And no, I'm not coming back," or whatever. So I thought you could see the total transformation from Jackie to John.
Yeah, I like that too.
Got his confidence back and all that.
I like that notation where even the name change. Just a little bit of mini bio for Joe Mantell. He actually won an Oscar in 1956 for his best supporting actor role in the movie Marty. It was made in 1955. It starred Ernest Borgnine. I'm not sure of the plot of that movie. Have you seen that movie, Marty? I haven't either. That'd be something maybe to check out. He was born December 21st, 1915 in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, New York, and he died September 29th, 2010 in Tarzana, Los Angeles, California. So he lived another one of those older actors that lived a long life, and they lived well into their 90s. I think I already mentioned Marty. He was a grinder, man. He was one of those actors of that era that was in a lot of movies and television shows. He was an Austrian Jewish, of Austrian and Jewish descent. His original last name was Mantell, but he just decided to add an additional L at the end. And it talked about he was nominated for that Academy Award. He had his first recurring role in television when he was playing Ernie Briggs in 6 episodes of the sitcom Pete and Gladys, and that ran from 1960 to 1962. And then, of course, he was recognizable in the 1974 movie Chinatown as the character Lawrence Walsh. Jimbo already alluded to that earlier. He retired in 1990 from acting at the age of 75, and he was 94 years old when he passed away. So just another one of those guys. Again, it's just hardworking. I mean, he got an Academy Award. Obviously he was significant. And he was in The Birds, too, you said. And I don't remember that Traveling Salesman. I'd have to go back and watch again and see his role in that. But, yeah, overall, I think again, I don't know, Jimbo. Tell me what you think your takeaways from this episode is and how well you liked it or didn't like it.
Again, it was okay.
Yeah.
It's nothing that really stood out to me. I guess it's because maybe it was due to budgetary cost, but it's just okay. I understand the story. I understand the struggle between himself and himself or whatever, and but it's like something you've already seen before, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But to me, it was just okay. It's not make or break for me either way. But don't forget, Eric, that you do need to be keeping track as we go along, because at the end of the year when we give our awards away and we rank them, our episodes from 1 to 10 or 10 to 1 or whatever,
right,
you make sure you keep track as we go along.
Right. Let me read this real quick. I have to find this. This is interesting. A little piece of trivia, I guess. On July 13th, 1960, Bob Shuford of Raleigh, North Carolina, wrote to Rod Serling, care of Bantam Books. Shuford had submitted an original short story entitled Behind the Glass, which told the tale of Claude Randall, a small-time crook who, after facing defeat in various forms, including holding out for bet money, is introduced to a reflection of himself who guides him into committing a number of profitable crimes. Every time the reflection gives Claude a tip, he concludes with, "Touch my hand. I'm so very cold." Claude follows each tip, committing acts of robbery and murder, and the rewards grow with each passing week. Expensive cars, champagne, and a fine home. One day, Claude faces his fears, and after receiving another tip, reaches out and touches the reflection's hand. Instantly, the reflection and Claude switch places. Claude discovers he's a prisoner of the mirror, and his only means of escape is to do as the reflection did. The mirror, however, is sold to an antique store, where it is later purchased and hung in a mansion. Late one night, with a burglar about, Claude attempts to give the man a tip that would make him wealthy, but the burglar accidentally smashes the mirror, leaving Claude to remain in his cold world of darkness. Serling had written his teleplay, Nervous Man in a $4 Room, weeks before Shuford mailed his submission. The episode went before the cameras before the letter was forwarded to Serling by Bantam. The coincidence of a guided voice in a mirror remained a minor risk for Serling, who was unable to send a rejection letter because Shuford failed to include his mailing address with his submission. Fearing Shuford might threaten a lawsuit for plagiarism because of the submission after seeing the episode telecast months later, Serling filed the short story away. No lawsuit or further communication resulted from the broadcast, but this was another example of how viewers were submitting plot ideas for episodes that had already finished production, but not aired on the network. I thought that was really interesting. That would have been a cool episode to see, those little twists of the man being locked in the mirror. But like it said, it wasn't submitted in time, and the episode had already aired. And can you imagine that? Like, getting that, and
especially when the glass shatters at the end.
Yeah, I thought that was a really cool story, and that would have been cool to see a little twist at the end, how that would have been made. But that was just a little interesting piece of trivia. My observations of this episode, I just wrote peer pressure can cost you your life. That was sort of my summary. On a personal note, years ago, I couldn't help but think about this. Years ago, my home was burglarized back like the Monday before Thanksgiving on 2017. And it was by divine providence that I wasn't at home. That's what I'm going to call it, and I think that's what it is, because I'm always home during the day. But 4 teenagers actually broke in and stole some stuff, and actually subsequently went about a mile down the road, broke into another residence of a man who was home, and he actually was shot and killed as a result of them breaking in. They didn't think anyone was home, and they broke in, and he was killed. And he was a pretty prominent guy in the community and so forth. He actually was a physician and worked for IU Health. And I can't help but think about those 4 teenagers who, I think the minimum sentence for one of them was like 20-something years, and the greater sentences were like 60 years out of the 4 of them. The lesser was 20, the greatest was 60. I don't think the police or the prosecutor could actually pin down who actually like pulled the trigger to kill the man, but they robbed him, and then they found a lot of his belongings in the trunk of their car later on. So I couldn't help but think about those 4 guys and how I'm sure there was tons of peer pressure going on in amongst them. I have this in my mind's eye, them driving around in a car and, come on, man, we gotta get some money, or let's go steal some stuff. Who knows how it came about, but I can't help but think about how that peer pressure changed their whole lives. And this is a great ending to the story. It has a positive ending because Jackie stands up and he tells, what's the guy's name? George. He tells him to, basically take a hike, and he says the line, I resign. Like, he's done with that life. His alter ego, the more stable guy, comes out, and it ends up, it has a nice little ending to the story, but it's TV. In real life, you make a bad decision, and it can change your life forever. And those 4 guys one of them was like 14, I think. Back to my story. One of them was 14. He's going to spend the greater part of his life in jail because, you're riding around and somebody pressured you into doing something, and you didn't stand up and do the right thing. So I couldn't help but think about that, and I had to share that little story as it related to this particular episode. But overall,
I heard they were right.
Sorry.
I heard they were writing a short story just called Nervous Men in a 4x8 Room. Is that what?
Maybe. But my story didn't end up. It didn't end up like this episode. Those guys had to pay for that for the rest of their life. But I couldn't help but think about that as it related to this story. But overall, I didn't think the episode was that great. It is better than The King 9 Will Not Return, in my opinion. But is it one of the top 10 stories or episodes? No. You said earlier, or we should be making a list as we go along. These first 3 are probably near the bottom so far. They got to work their way up. So I don't know. The Mighty Mr. Dingle, or whatever he's called, that one's terrible. That one's at the bottom, I think. But we'll get to that one.
Well, next week's isn't very much better either. The one about the machines.
Yeah, that one's nice.
So
it's a rough start to season 2, but we'll get there.
Once we hit starting season episode 5 and 6, it gets pretty good.
Oh yeah.
So, well, I think we've pretty much rattled on long enough for an episode that wasn't even really that good.
Yeah.
So I think this episode's coming to a close, and that's a wrap.
And cut.
Exit Mr. John Rhodes, formerly a reflection in a mirror. A fragment of someone else's conscience, a wishful thinker made out of glass, but now made out of flesh, and on his way to join the company of men. Mr. John Rhodes with 1 foot through the door and 1 foot out of the Twilight Zone.